Well, today is the day after Thanksgiving, 26th of November, 2004. And we're here at Snyder Manor, apartment D2, and we're about to interview Ann Gwatkin today for our Military Oral Histories Project, and which is really sponsored very proudly by the Lowell Area Historical Museum. Now, my partner today is Nick Blau. He's going to do the filming, and I'm Ivan Blau. And we're really honored, Ann, to be here to interview you about your military service to our country. And we know that you served during the First World War.
Second.
Second World War, absolutely. You aren't
You're
anywhere near that old.
You're aging.
Right, the Second World War, sure. And anyway, we would just like to talk to you a little bit about your family, your background, where you were born, and so on. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Surely. I was born November 10th, 1920, in Grand Rapids at St. Mary's Hospital. And I was there were 7 children in our family. They had 4. My parents had 4 older children. And then there was about 10 years time, and then I came. I can look at that.
That's great.
And
sure.
then I came. So then there were 3 of us. So we had an awfully nice family.
Great.
But then I did have my sister. My oldest sister died before I was born. She died in 1919 of strep throat, and which I want to verify. I say by now that many times after many strep throats they develop heart conditions, and that's probably what she died of. She was 13, but at that time there was nothing to do for it except aspirin probably. Anyway, so then as I said to your father, she died the day before Christmas, and it was a very sad day. My parents we always honored her that day, but on Christmas Day I always admired my parents. They made Christmas as nice as they could for us, and that must have been hard for them and heartbreaking, but they enjoyed it. So so we had a nice childhood. Went to Marywood.
Well, you first you lived on in Grand Rapids, on Thomas Street?
We lived
somewhere?
on Thomas Street, right? You're right. We lived on Thomas Street, and then my folks built a home on Rosewood. This was in 1925, and by that time they were starting St. Stephen's Parish, which was just across the street from us. And then originally they met in St. Andrew's Cathedral until the parish was built. So my father built this home. It was kind of it was countryside, got dirt roads, and he said that he went way over his head in building. His house cost him $8,000, which was, he said, way over his head. But I imagine Ivan.
Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's was up behind Marywood Academy, as we know. Near it, somewhere near there.
Rosewood. No, that was on Rosewood.
Okay.
Across from St. Stephen's Church, between Lake Drive and Franklin.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right there.
All right. That's down that far. Okay. But that still was East Grand Rapids.
Oh,
was it
yes.
not?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then your father's name was?
John A. Collins.
Okay. And I understand he was this gentleman that's behind us here in the picture. And was the mayor?
Yes, he was the mayor of East Grand Rapids for 22 years.
22 years. That's a lot of service to his community.
Yeah, he liked politics, and he was an honest politician, which I admire. You know, he always told the truth, and he never wanted wanted to accept any benefits from any, because then you'd have to repay them. He always said that.
Okay.
They could exact.
It's not going to be holden to anybody, as they used to say.
Yes, that's right. So he was quite a gentleman.
And your mother's name?
My mother's name was Sarah, but we called her Sadie. She preferred to be called Sarah because she didn't like Sadie. So, she was a wonderful woman too. So.
Okay, now there you started to attend elementary school.
Yes.
And what school was that?
St. Stephen's School. Went through 8 grades there, and that was just about a half a block from our house on Rosewood. We were right in the middle of Rosewood, the block. So it was about a half a block from there.
That was convenient.
Very.
Tell me a little bit about a day in school.
Well, we had, I think I told, when I went to kindergarten, should I tell them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
When I went to kindergarten, I had a wonderful teacher, Sister Leonard. She's a famous kindergarten teacher. Oh, you like this. She said, and then when I first went, I cried, and my cousin was up about in the 4th grade, because they were waiting. She would belong to St. Thomas Parish, and they were waiting for that to be built. And so I would cry, and she would take me up to let me sit with my cousin. So I think she did that about 2 or 3 days, and the next time she said, "You just sit there and cry." And I never cried again. So I always admired her. I think she was smart.
Had the right,
Yeah.
right thing for you,
So,
didn't she?
And it was,
Okay, now a day in school, how did
Well,
this day go?
we started by going to mass every day, and usually, and then we'd have our classes from 9 to 12, lunch break, and very nice. It was a fun school, really, taught by the nuns. So
Was there anybody in the school there that you remember today, schoolmates that
Yeah.
we might know?
yeah, you do. We had some famous classmates. Right
Okay.
now, Peter Wegge was a member of our class.
Peter Wegge,
Yeah.
of the Wegge
The
Foundation?
Wegge Foundation, and then Jane Morrissey Lax, married Richard Lax. And by the way, they're just going to open that Lax Cancer Center, at St. Mary's,
Oh.
in honor of her husband.
honor of her,
With
yes.
her husband. So then we had, I thought we had quite a few, but I was talking to her. I think there were about 13, so we didn't have a lot in our class.
About 13.
I think maybe about.
So it was almost
6
like country
girls.
school.
Right, it was, right. You got
Except that you had them all in one class,
One
and where
class.
we had 13 the whole school.
Oh, well. And then they have 2 classes in one room, of course, because they didn't.
Oh, yeah.
There was plenty of room for that, so I enjoyed CSU.
I think we learned a lot from each other in
Yeah,
those classes.
I think
didn't
so
we? The older
too.
kids and the younger
I
people.
think so too.
Yeah. And then after you graduated, you did there for 8 years. I think you graduated in 1933, is that correct?
About
From there,
34.
about approximately.
34.
And you went to, where did you go?
Marywood, went to Marywood Academy.
Now that was different.
Very different. My sister had gone there, and it was a nice, I enjoyed that too. It was a girls' school on Fulton Street, you probably know
Yeah.
where it is now.
All girls.
All girls at that time, and it was a boarding school too, so we were day students, and that was a great, I enjoyed that school very much. It was girl fun, but it was great
Mhm.
fun,
Mhm.
We had sports and
Did you play any sports?
Yeah, yes, basketball.
What did you play? You did?
Basketball. They played, girls played basketball
Okay.
then.
Oh, yeah.
And then they played, would it be hockey out in the field or soccer?
Okay.
Soccer, no doubt.
Soccer.
I have a little trouble with hockey and soccer. So, and then we had lots of gym, they called it.
Sure.
So,
You did that for 4 years.
yes.
In 1938, you graduated.
Graduated, I was there, Marywood.
So, what did you do for summers?
Well, my father rented a cottage in Grand Haven for 4 summers. I'm sure it was very reasonable. I think he thought it's a good way to take care of this family, because and then 2 younger brothers and myself. And then my older brothers and sisters would come. But it was a delightful time, because it wasn't that busy, and
The cottage was out at
Grand Haven.
At Grand Haven.
Near the, up above the Bilmar there, along the
Okay.
Oriole, I remember. We loved that. So.
I bet you got a lot of fond
We had a
memories
lot
of the days
yeah,
there.
We do.
Now, he's got you through college, or through high school, and I know your father, he made sure that you kids were all busy, so
Oh, yeah.
he made sure that you got some more education.
Mhm.
So what did you do then?
Yeah, because he kept saying to me, "What do you plan to do? What do you plan to do?" Well, by that time, as senior, you don't think anything. I'm just getting through high school.
Yeah.
So finally, I said, "I think I'll be a nurse." And I remember
A
my mother,
nurse.
my sister had been a nurse, so and
Okay.
she did private duty, and that life sounded glamorous. So I said to him, "I think I'll be a nurse." And my mother was kind of disappointed. She said, "I thought you'd be a teacher." But so I went into nurses training then at St. Mary's.
At St. Mary's School?
And they called it the Mercy Central School of Nursing. That was part of St. Mary's.
What was that again?
We call it Mercy Central School of Nursing. It's really
Okay.
St. Mary's, and it's the Mercy Order runs the school. And then they had detachment, my Army slang, from a group from Bay City and a group from Muskegon came into the first year. So we had about 100 students. So we got your first year of training. Then they went back to their units, and then we started on the floors, the second year. So, and then we all came back together to graduate.
All right, now that took about 3 years
3
of
years.
that time to work, right?
Mhm.
So now you graduated from the St. Mary's Mercy School of Nursing in 1941.
1941, right.
Is that when you took your state boards then?
Well, that fall, I think probably in October, we took our
Mhm.
state boards in Lansing then. And that was always dreading you're worried about that, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Should I talk about the comprehensive?
Sure.
Well, you know, the Sister Xavier, who was quite a distinguished educator, came in the last year we were nurses training. And I think, we had wonderful teachers before that, but I think she was a staunch educator, and she thought, boy, these girls have got to learn. So she gave us a comprehensive test on what the state board would be like. We all
Okay.
failed, about 3 of them passed.
Oh.
So thank God she did, because then we had intensive studies, so none of us would have passed our state board. But
Isn't
thank
that-
God to her, thank
that
God that
she
she
was
had
like,
could see that we needed that help. So we had the comprehensive and had our state board, and I passed the state board, thank God. So
Now, again, your father made sure that you got to work, right?
yes, indeed.
That's why he's such an important part
Yeah,
of your life.
he worked
isn't
every day of his life. That was,
All right, and where did you go to work then?
Well, then I worked at St. Mary's for a while, and then I went to Ferguson Sanitarium. And I remember we made $70 a month, and we thought we did very
$70 a month.
I thought we did well. I dressed better then I do now. But it was a nice place to work. It was Dr. Lynn Ferguson, Dr. Drosty, and Dr. Ward Ferguson. And they had, it was rectal work, you know, and they had patients from all over. They had distinguished reputation. And they were very nice to work for, very down to earth. And it was an awfully nice place to work. It's like a finishing school, you know. So then I was there that the Army idea came up.
Yeah, now that was during those last few years. This was when Germany was really going strong. They were overpowering all the little countries there. They were into Poland and Czechoslovakia. They were into Denmark and Austria, Norway, and into France. And and that was and in of course 1941 the Japs had bombed Pearl Harbor, and so our country was all very, very patriotic. It seemed like patriotism just flowed through the whole country, because I can remember those days too. And I know that it wasn't just the young people that were going to be going to war or going to serve in the country, but it was the grandfathers and grandmothers. The father and mothers didn't want their kids to go, but they still knew that this is a service that had to be done. And I can remember as a little kid at that time, doing everything I could do, for the war effort. But all of us did that, and we picked our little school, grade school. We picked milkweed pods to make life jackets, for the servicemen. We bought saving stamps, we bought bonds, and now, is that, you think, something kind of that feeling? Did you feel that too?
I'm sure. It was just, as you said, a general feeling. We all felt that we had to help, wanted to help,
Yes.
And we were so proud of our soldiers, our boys.
And you had a brother?
Then I had a younger brother. My younger brother, Dick, enlisted in the Army, or he was drafted, I suspect, before Pearl Harbor. And he went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And then they went over to Africa, an invasion of Africa. And on the way over, apparently, we didn't know this till long afterwards, he must have been threatened with washing overboard, and he grabbed the ropes and amputated the end of this finger, this index finger. It saved his life, though. Yeah. So he had that. But I think I always thought of him, he went through Africa, and then they invaded. They went to Anzio in southern France, and then up through France,
So maybe that had a little influence on you.
Yes, I'm sure it did.
Then you enlisted.
Yes, I did.
You quit your job, enlisted in 1943.
43, right.
And that was into the Army Nurse Corps.
Right.
And now you were at that time you were inducted, I guess we should say, and given your uniform.
Right.
Similar to this one, or I
Yes.
guess it was that one. Is this a picture?
Yes, that's a summer uniform.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and what your rank, how you got your rank and so on, and show us the bars on there?
When you took your oath of office, I remember being administered at the carpet sweeper company. My father was somebody, Mr. Vandermans,
Okay.
who had what would you have the authority to administer oaths? I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Notary public? I don't know
Probably.
what. So I took my oath of
Probably.
office down at Bissell's. And then a little aside, right, in talking about the
Yes.
war fever, my dad was an air raid warden, and then he said, Bill,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Bissell, the president of Bissell's, ran the elevator at Lodge, and that was it. So everybody did
something.
anything, you know.
Yes.
So when we entered, I decided to go to Gulfport, Mississippi. I had a choice of Gulfport or Selfridge Field, so I elected to go to Gulfport. So upon arriving in Gulfport, you were issued these nurses' uniforms for duty uniforms, plus the dress uniform. This is a beige outfit that is good
Okay.
for hot weather. It's a summer uniform. So this is the dress. It's a nice dress, and here are the bars that you automatically became a second lieutenant upon taking that oath of office. That was,
Okay.
I'm sure that was an incentive to get women to join the nurse corps. At that
Okay.
time, they needed them too, you know.
Mhm.
So then
And
this
that's
is,
this bar here?
that's the bar here on my shoulder,
Okay.
and then this is the nurse's caduceus, we called it, with it's the medical caduceus, like, but with an N, N imposed
Okay,
on
as a
it.
nurse.
Yes,
uh-huh.
and that was, so
Yeah.
we liked that. And
Mhm.
then the cap was, that was all issued, and then that was automatically the United States
Emblem there
Mhm.
on your hat.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. I bet you were proud of that uniform. were you?
Very, very proud.
You
of
ladies.
Georgia.
How many ladies were there? Oh, quite a
Oh,
few?
gosh, there were a lot in Gulfport. We were in a barracks of about 40, and I think there were 2 or 3 barracks
Mhm.
in Gulfport. That was the night. We enjoyed that. We could go, we had easy access to New Orleans. We weren't far. You could
Okay.
take, the train service was wonderful. You could go into work a day, do a day's work and go into New Orleans for dinner. And
Mhm.
evening, come back and be back by 11. I think that was our curfew, but
So you were working there at Gulfport
Yes,
in
in the
a
hospital.
hospital?
in the hospital, right? Mhm.
All right. And what kind of a ward or what
I
did
was
you
on-
treat or what was your duties there, kind of?
I was on the surgical ward for a while. Then I was on the contagious ward or infectious ward, and we had the most wonderful Captain Herbert. He was a pediatrician, and at that time, a lot of the boys had meningitis, and it kind of ran rampant. But he was a little man, like slight,
Mm.
but he fought hard. He was right in there taking care of those boys, and they all recovered. It was a wonderful experience. So.
Now, these were fellows that were probably in their basic training
Yes.
or whatever, and then
Yes.
got
Yes.
sick.
Got sick, and then it
and went to
spread
the
rapidly,
hospital.
you know, yeah.
Now, while you were there, you were, what, 23 years old then,
Yes.
weren't you?
That's right.
And did you have any fun leaves that you
Yes,
remember?
well, yeah,
Just-
I leave home one time, you
Took
to
you
come
to
home
home,
and visit,
okay.
and that was great.
Uh-huh.
And then I think I said when I got back from my leave, which is kind of hard to go back, you know.
Yeah.
There was a letter from my father, and the first thing I got was a letter, and he said, I enjoyed my visit, and I thought how nice, how thoughtful, he was a very thoughtful man, so.
Yeah, and that was waiting for you when you
Waiting when I
got
got home
back.
from this.
Yeah.
So that was about the most, in New Orleans, and
Mhm. Now, and while you were there, you apparently had the option to do something special. And what did you do?
The option came, you could volunteer for overseas duty.
Mhm.
So we did sign up for it, because we'd been there about a year.
Yeah, okay.
And we did sign up, and then in March of '44, there were 10 nurses from Gulfport, many that I knew that lived right around me, and 10 from Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi. Went up to Fort Bragg, we trained up there, went up by train rather, went to Fort Bragg to get ready to go overseas. And we were the Gulfport Air Force, I'm just ignoring
That's
that.
fine.
Ignore. And we used to sing, in the Army, everybody sang, well, I think they still do. We'd go on the bus and sing, we'd go this and sing, and we'd go there, and everybody sang. And
Okay.
we got to Fort Bragg, and we would march up to the mess hall, and we'd sing, off we go into the Army Air Corps. And finally, the order came down from headquarters, and they said, "But the girls, please stop singing the Air Corps song." So we had to stop.
I didn't want you making all that noise anymore, huh?
No, so.
Well,
Hi, Mary Ann, this is Dee. I was kind of hoping you still had Thursday's paper and could save me the article with Mother's picture, an article it's F27, and I'll pick it up Tuesday when I...
Just wait till a minute and get where we're all set. Now, you went to, from to Fort Bragg there that you said, right?
Right.
And that's really where you learned to march and all of that when you were
Yes,
singing
yes,
and doing this.
yeah, we did.
Then you were sent to apparently
Camp Kilmer.
Camp Kilmer. Where was this?
In New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Not sure, but it must be near the shoreline. Camp
Because you had volunteered to go overseas, so
Yes.
now they're preparing you on your way, getting you
right.
started, getting you
Yes.
closer to where you're gonna.
Right.
And that was you lived in a barracks there then,
Right.
huh?
Right.
How long do you think you were there? And that was right in New York, near New York City then?
Yes, right, so we
Mhm.
could go into New York. I bet we were there about a good 2 weeks or 3 weeks,
Okay.
I would estimate. So we could take trips into New York. I happened to be a good friend of mine who was from New York, and so she showed me, she's from Albany, and
Mhm.
nurse, and she showed me, more things about the, what did I tell you, the automat?
The automat, yeah.
Automat, go in and punch something, the food was in the containers, and we went to an opera, and we went to the Rockefeller Center, and then we went up to New London one time, because there's so much to do around there, isn't there? So I really was fortunate in seeing a lot of things through her eyes.
Now, tell me about, you got on a ship, I believe. What
Right.
ship and how, tell me about the experience of how you got on the ship and who you were with and that kind of thing.
Our group, we stayed together, which was good. They kept the 20 of us kind of together. And we were scheduled to go on, we didn't know it, on the Queen Mary. And I've often thought I could never walk up a gangplank because I didn't think I could go on a ship. And so I thought, oh, let's never make it. Well, you know what, I said, I still compliment the Army. They keep you so busy, you never know. You're busy, you're occupied all the time.
Okay.
So they took us, we really didn't, you didn't know where you just went where you were told to go. So we went to this warehouse, and we went down the lower level of the warehouse, walked through something, and here we were on the Queen Mary.
You didn't even know you guys went over the gangplank.
Never knew it, no. So it was the neatest way to go, So then we got up to I'm not sure what floor our stateroom was on, but it was a small, single stateroom. I can't think of the size of that kitchen, maybe. And they had three-tiered bunks, and they had 3 of those in that small stateroom, but it was crowded.
So the 9 of you girls were in there all together.
We were on there, so, and then we had, and as I said too, then they had salt water in the bathroom. There's no fresh water at all to bathe or anything. But then, so we got on that night, saw the Statue of Liberty. We left the harbor, it was misting, cold, it was a March afternoon. I said, I never saw the Atlantic as stormy and dark and black and frightening, some waves. So we left, and then the next morning.
Now, you're on there with a lot of other
15,
troops?
Yeah, 15,000 troops.
15,000 guys?
Right.
And 20 ladies?
They're a lot more.
A lot more than
And then
that.
I said, I think too, we always thought the Queen Mary changed courses every 3 minutes. I told my nephew this one time, and he said, oh, Marianne, that a ship couldn't turn that fast. But I think they could alter their course because they go so fast that escorts couldn't keep up with it. Escort ships could not keep up with them.
Couldn't keep up with
No.
Queen Mary?
And the submarines, they set their sights, and they couldn't do that in that short a time. So we did zigzag across the Atlantic. And my stomach went with it.
Would that give you
Yeah,
seasick, huh?
I was terribly seasick. And the next morning, went down to, I had my seat ticket, I went down 5 flights of steps to the mess hall. And you go zigzag all the way down my stomach. So I got down there, and everything, all the china was anchored to the table. And they were fixing kippers, which is that a fish or?
Oh. You don't like kippers today,
No,
probably?
and I couldn't get upstairs fast enough. I never went back down to that dining room because my stomach was just. So I spent the tour in bed.
Now, how long did it take, you think, to get over there?
I think it might have been about 4.5 days.
About 4.5 days. So that ship
good.
really did move.
They did move,
It
right?
moved
That was
fast.
wonderful. You think of 15,000. Then the last day, you kind of get your sea legs, but and the head nurses come in every day and give you your mail, and they gave us Dramamine to help us with our seasickness.
Okay.
And I don't know how we kept our fluids, but they must have observed that. And so about the last day, we went up on deck, and it was a nice sunshiny day. And some of the sailors somebody had some tea. So we had a drink of that. I never tasted anything so good in my life as that tea. I can still see it. And in the process was talking to a soldier, and here the boy was from Charleroi. And I knew his sister. I can't
Isn't
think of
that
this. Jim
something?
Martin, and his sister graduated my sister from nurses training.
Isn't
So I
that-
knew his sister. So that was such a nice
Yeah,
coincidence. So-
that was a nice thing to
Yeah.
remember about that. So now you're going to, they're gonna take you over there and they're gonna land you, where did you land?
We landed in the Firth of Clyde, and we must have arrived there in the night, because in the next morning when we woke up, we were, what do you call it, anchored.
Anchored,
And
yeah.
anchored, and then it was misty or foggy,
Uh-huh.
hazy. But then they took us by tender into shore in the Firth of Clyde.
Okay, now, right
Oh,
here
wait,
is, this
yeah.
is a map of Britain and Ireland, and right here is the Firth of Clyde. This is kind of a bay in here. And so the ship came in here somewhere and docked here, and then put you on a tender,
On a tender.
okay? And they brought you into, what was, do you know the town or anything
I
there?
don't, Ivan.
Don't, but
Really,
anyway,
I
you
don't.
got on a, what did you get?
Got
how
on a
did you-
train.
Got on a train here, and where?
Went to
then-
Colin Bay.
Then you went off by train down toward the south
Yeah.
into England, and then back
Oh.
around here to
Into
Colin
Wales.
Bay.
Mhm, in Wales.
Right here is Colin
Okay.
Bay, that's in Wales.
That's quite a
So you
jump,
had to
wasn't
come,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
you came back up into
Yeah.
Wales, and right there is Colin
Colin
Bay.
Mhm.
And so now, tell us about your stay in Colin Bay. How did that all
Well,
go?
it's tragic.
Tragic.
We landed in Colin Bay, and we were so glad to be on land. And it was at night, might have been
Mhm.
7 or 8 at night by the time we arrived. And we were billeted, as they call it, with families, private homes. And unbeknownst to us, well, which the Army did pay these people for us, and then
Okay.
gave them coal, because they didn't have any other heat.
Okay.
So we ended up with this, I'm sure, a maiden lady in a 3-story house, this other, my roommate and I, Kay Bauer. And we were up on the 3rd floor in this house, and they didn't want us, And so we were up.
But they would take the
They'd
money
take
though and the
money,
coal.
and it was forced on them, I suppose, So we were up in this little small 3rd floor bedroom, and we were so glad to be on land, and I wanted to take a bath and get cleaned up, I went down to take a bath, and it was cold water, but I thought, I don't care, I'm gonna get clean. So about 9 o'clock, she pulls the master switch, and all the electricity goes out. I was so mad at her. That was hers. We'd had it.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's the way, so we survived. And then we would go, as I said, the Army is smart, they would have us, you must go to breakfast, and they had a roll call, which was good. Went over to the mess hall, you couldn't sleep in.
Okay, you leave that house that
Yeah.
you were staying at
Yes.
and all meet at a
Walk over-
mess hall
and
that
we'd
they
walk
had set
over.
up.
Yeah, it wasn't
Mhm.
far, nothing was
Uh-huh.
very far, and you could walk any place. So we'd go over there and have our meals, and then we found out that there was a church nearby, where
Uh-huh.
it had a, what do you call it, a family room, or
Probably, yeah.
and we were welcome there, and it was warm, and we loved that. So we could go in there and write letters, and after breakfast, and visit and be comfortable. Oh, that was so nice.
Uh-huh.
And then they'd always have lectures for you. The Army would have a lecture at like
About-
11 o'clock.
Sure.
And you'd had to go to the lecture, then to lunch, and then something in the afternoon. You didn't have very little idle time, but that was smart, really smart. So, and then we wanted to, we went to Mass on Sunday, and the priest announced that he said, I understand the Yanks would like to take baths. So there were probably lots of general complaints, so he said, I have several names of people that would welcome you into their homes to take a bath. So
Oh.
that was wonderful. People are wonderful, really. So,
Now, you were assigned to a hospital there then, right?
no, we
No,
didn't work
not
there.
yet.
No, not
Okay,
yet,
well,
no.
when did you get to a hospital?
Then we
Later
left,
on?
yes, then we left there and went to, did we go to the 68th General Hospital then, I think it organized, in
Okay.
Oswestry.
Where was that
In
at?
Oswestry.
Oswestry. Oh, okay.
O-S-W-E-S-T-R-Y. It's a little town north of Shrewsbury.
Okay. Northwestry, I don't.
Or Oswestry, we
Oswestry.
found it one time. but
Yes, okay.
It's a small,
Well, Oswestry was right here.
oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's just a little ways from, here was Colin Bay,
Okay,
and then we moved over here to Oswestry. And that's where the 68th hospital was
yeah,
then.
68th
Now, was that
General
a new hospital,
Yeah,
or?
yes, it had been built, it was on a farm in Shropshire.
Oh,
And, It was probably on a sheep farm, like Dick Beamer said. And then they
Okay.
built the barracks, in the hospital.
Uh-huh.
I motioned with my hand. And then,
That's
so
fine,
it was
yeah.
new. And then our barracks, our nurses' quarters were, we call them our huts. But
Okay.
it was nice. And they had a general bathroom, which it was warm and lots of
Okay.
showers, so.
All right. Now, we'll find a picture here of one of your barracks, I think. Don't you have a picture of one of your
Yes, I
barracks
do.
here somewhere? We'll
Let's
take
see.
a look at that.
Okay.
And,
Okay, so-
we did anyway.
And that's the outside.
This is one right here,
And
isn't
here's
it?
that one outside that church. I love that picture.
Oh, this
of
one,
it.
this is at the inn,
Yes,
this is where you were then,
In Wales, Wales.
in Wales, at the 68th. This is when you was on the 68th.
Well, we were the hospital, we were on detached, so in Wales, we hadn't gone on. But that's that church that had.
This
the
is the
same-
church.
The community room, we
Okay.
were welcome to go to.
So here's and that's some of the girls that went over there to that church then,
And every day,
together.
we go every day.
All right?
Yeah, warm and then.
So that's a fond memory of that part of it, wasn't it?
Also, I don't want to forget, Ivan,
Mm-hmm.
the people across the street from us in
Oh, okay.
Wales, in Colwyn Bay,
Mhm.
they used to call it Colwyn Bay.
Colwyn.
They were from London. They were a business. And here
Alright.
we are. And what's the name of that? This is Stansfeld.
Okay,
And so
you
she
can
came
know
over
that.
one day and she said,
Mrs.
now-
Stanfield.
Stansfeld, she said, now
Okay.
you girls are welcome to come over and use our living room anytime you want. It was warm. Everything we were gathered, everything was
England
warm.
was cold, but
Yeah, it
you
was-
found some
it
warm
was
spots you
warm.
remembered,
With these
didn't
nice
you?
warm people, and she was a lovely lady. So we'd go over there and do our washing. She let us, she was
Oh,
the
here you are with your
nicest-
washing, aren't you?
nicest lady.
And
oh,
I bet you
yeah.
this is a picture of you guys
Yeah,
hanging up
hanging
your
out our
washing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Then
Yeah.
One time when we were in Colwyn Bay, we went up to Liverpool for something. I'm not sure where we were. We
Mhm.
went to Liverpool, and then you talked to everybody and you met everybody, and we met some gentlemen there from
Mhm.
the Lifebuoy company, and they invited us to their business luncheon. So we all went. These nurses all.
To the Lifebuoy company.
Lifebuoy.
Lifebuoy soap company?
Yes.
Was that
And
right?
they had a board meeting.
I
or a lun-
remember
a lun-
Lifebuoy soap.
Yeah, a luncheon. Just, I thought, you get in on more nice things that way. Yeah, that was fun. So.
Okay, now you had mentioned that you had gone on what you called detached service.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
I forgot
and
to
that
tell
was,
you
you were sent to north of London to
Right.
a place called Hatfield,
That's
is that right?
That's right. That's
And,
before we went to Oswestry.
That was before,
Right,
but we
right.
just digest back here, but we went
Okay.
down there to get ready to go up here to
68.
68.
Right.
But that was down here by London, and we can find London on a map right here, and right there is Hatfield, just to the north of London is where you were. That's where
Yes, we
you
are.
actually got some probably special training there, or what did you get there?
Well, regular training. It was. We got. I think they realized that it just wasn't satisfactory in Colwyn Bay. People were miserable.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think they designed, and the smart. I think that Army is smart. So they
Mhm.
figured we'll send them on detached service, meaning that you work at this hospital for a while till
Till we
things
get
are
the other
ready.
place
They're
ready.
So we did go to Hatfield, and they had a huge tent. I would call it like a circus, a huge tent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had cots along the sides of the wall, but it was warm. There were pot-bellied stoves at each end of the tent that you tended to at night. You'd stoke them at night, get ready for morning,
Okay.
Then when you ironed, you put your irons on those stoves to iron.
Oh.
Yeah, but it was nice. And that was the first General Hospital, or the Bellevue unit.
Bellevue.
And it was
unit.
very nice. And I was
Mhm.
telling Ivan that while we were there, we would see the B-17s returning from the continent on their flight. It was just a beautiful sight to see, but it brings tears to your eyes, because it was just something to watch them flying over. You just wanted to wave and
Oh,
see
that's when
fly-
they returned from a bombing mission.
Right, you'd see
Oh,
that.
okay. Now, did you, at that time, did you hear any bombs or anything bombing England in any way at that time, or was there air
Yeah.
raids? Or any-
Yes, there were. We could go into London very easily too. There was
Uh-huh.
good transportation. So we'd go into London. And I remember one night for dinner or show, and walking home, we had to walk from ways to the airfield or to your hospital.
Mhm.
And there's an air raid, and I was so scared.
Oh.
Did I dare tell what I did?
Yeah, well, sure.
I wet my pants. I was so scared. Oh, I was
Well, yeah.
petrified. Oh,
Why,
just
sure.
petrified.
Sure.
That's the only one I remember being out in, you know.
Mm-hmm. Was there any bombs dropped that night, or
There
just the
could have been,
evening?
but it must have been, we're in the distance probably, you
Okay.
know, not maybe in London,
Mhm.
because you just hear the,
You-
but, oh. I remember that.
That brought it close to home,
Yes,
didn't it,
yes,
huh,
it
to
did.
you? Okay, so then you went back and done your work there, at the 68th General Hospital.
And we moved to the 68th.
Mm-hmm.
That was ready, the 68th was ready for us, so we could, and I was assigned to this psychiatrist, Captain Seward. And
Okay.
and at the time I thought, God, I don't know anything about psychiatry, but you go and do it. And
Uh-huh.
so then, all you do was, we were setting up the wards, getting ready, which is so that everything was working, you had all the equipment, anything you needed. And you get a little bit restless, you know, so we applied for a leave. You could get a 24-hour, 48-hour leave. And unbeknownst to us, it was over June 6th, and I had
Yeah,
my story.
sure, that's okay, yeah.
So we were on leave. We got worked, and then we got on the train. And then at that time, we heard all the leaves were canceled. That was D-Day, invasion of Europe, Normandy. So we did get into London, and I said then too, we had no way to spend our money, so we had some money, and we went to a nice hotel. And then we heard Churchill speaking when we were signing in. I still can hear Churchill talking about, we have landed on the beachheads. Oh, I wish I could repeat the rest of it.
Normandy.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
and it was still precarious. They didn't know if they were gonna make it. It was really treacherous there for a while.
Mhm.
And so we got up in our room, and this waiter came in. We didn't move. And he said, "We haven't seen many of you Yanks lately." And we thought, "Oh," we thought, because it was off limits. We didn't know. London
You didn't even
we
realize
didn't
it.
realize it.
You were supposed
And
to
I
be
said,
there.
I
Uh-huh.
thought, we thought we were so smart. We thought, well, we'll say that we were supposed to go to Birmingham, but we didn't get off the train in time. And I thought, now who would believe that? we thought we were so smart. So we got out of there the next morning as fast as we could. We took the train to
Back to,
Chester, I think we
To
had Liverpool,
Chester?
Chester, Liverpool.
Okay.
Mhm.
uh-huh.
So that was my famous D-Day. Ooh.
And you found a little pamphlet,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a picture here, didn't you?
Yes, I
That
did.
you seem to really,
I do.
feel
Very
good.
fond
Tell us
of
a little
it.
bit about this,
Well, this is
what's happening.
This is General Eisenhower down talking to the troops just before they are embarking to go to Normandy. You know, and they were all black-faced, and they'd been in isolation or training right on the coast and ready to go. And he knew it, so he went down here. He's among them talking, as you could see, they're black-faced, and I always thought that was a wonderful thing to do, because that night they
embarked on
moved. Yeah,
Normandy.
it started into Normandy. Yeah, so I always liked that. And it's by Charles Schultz. I thought,
Yeah.
didn't he pick a nice one to?
Yeah, to do that in his
Yeah.
column, to remember, says on the bottom, June 6, 1944, to remember.
Yeah, isn't that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
Of course, it was done later, but still, it
It's
brought
just-
back
oh,
that memory
yes,
for you, didn't
I
it?
love that.
Okay, so now we've had the June, the invasion there, and you had to hustle back now to the hospital.
68.
You're back there, and what happens now at the hospital?
Well, very soon, probably, we've started getting casualties or injuries from the war, and they could fly them back to Oswestry, and our triage area was out on the lawn, because it was, of course, June. So I remember that, the litters, as they say, all over that front lawn. The doctors would go along deciding who goes where and what. So then that continued for several days or weeks. And then as the troops moved forward in Europe, they didn't have to come back so far. So then the hospitals were closer to the coast, so we didn't get as many then.
Oh, okay.
Although they transferred patients to us then, so we
After
were
they
always
had their
full.
first treatment.
Yeah, so
Uh-huh.
we were always full and busy. So
Mhm.
then I worked on this ward. This doctor was going to do this battle fatigue unit, and so I think there was always cases, you know, of anxiety or of the boys. So this Major Kelly must have devised this system, and I don't know where he's from, but he he figured out if you could give the boys, if they were just worn out in battle, would just get a neuroses really from
Sure.
battle. So he gave them rather strong sleeping pills, like the night before. They'd sleep, so they slept very soundly. Then in the morning, he would administer insulin, and they wouldn't eat, and then they'd get an insulin reaction. And he thought it was just like a shock therapy, really,
Mm.
because by noon, and you would circulate among them and watch them, you know, to make sure they're okay. And then by noon, of course, they were sweating, perspiring, and then they could have a meal, and then they'd get cleaned up, and then they'd rest and go through, and then start that night the same thing. Well, then in the meantime, too, the doctor could, if he wanted to, could portray their battle. He would take them in an office with himself and corpsmen probably, and he would give them, he could administer sodium pentothal, so that they were just slightly under, you know. And then he would relay or replay the battle scenes. He'd have a drum and bat thing so that they could talk over what they'd been through. And many times that brought out the thing that frightened them so much. And I think I told Ivan one day that we had a boy, Gerhard Sternau, I remember him, and he'd been born in Germany and came to America, and he was in the army, and he must have been with the troops in Normandy or in the invasion. And he said that in this process, he said that he had a group of men, and probably the Germans found out that he was German and could speak German. Mm-hmm. So they must have been interrogating him a lot. And he said he remembers he told us that, he said, I remember one of the men saying, Sternau, tell them what they want to know. So they must have been cruel to them, but that would come out in that. It was really wonderful. And then they sent me on 2 weeks on detached service to learn more about this treatment.
From this Major Kelly.
Yes, he was
so
there.
you had actually intense training from him in that area.
Yeah.
All right. Now, then you were sent. That was to Portsmouth, and on the of course the English Channel.
Across the English
Now,
Channel.
we went down here. The English Channel is over here, and Portsmouth is right. Let's see.
Here, let's get this up.
Let's take this now and move it just a little.
All right.
So Nick can get a little better
shot
of this for us.
Map is wonderful.
All right, we're down here now. Here's Portsmouth, right there.
Right. Okay.
Whoops, right here. We come all the way down from Collins Bay up here, or Collin Bay, all the way down here now to Portsmouth. All right, and there you went across the
channel, English
across
channel.
the channel.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that a little bit.
We always, I'm going to have to add it up. You can add. We always used in the time of the war, we'd say D-Day +1.
Okay.
D-Day was invasion day, wasn't D-Day?
Yeah, okay.
And they'd say D-Day +1 if you'd like the wars do. So we always said the 68th General Hospital invaded Europe, and D-Day plus 373. We were always smart. We thought we were smart. Okay. So it was a delightful trip. It was in summer, so it was nice.
So now we're into about 1945 now then. 40. July.
Yes,
45.
that's right. I was going to say 44, but yeah, the VE day had been, that's right.
So 1945.
So it was nice and warm. It's just an overnight trip.
So you had worked in this hospital then for almost a year, a little over a year.
Yeah, because we landed in 44. Yeah, good.
Sure, that's why you got the 300.
Can I tell you this one funny thing?
Sure,
I forgot to tell you about this. This one doctor in the 68th General Hospital. He was an internist, Dr. Woodrow.
68.
Woodrow Campion.
All right.
And he was a good friend of this Major Seward. And this Major Seward was a wonderful psychiatrist. We've met all kinds of psychiatrists, but he was, his father had been a psychiatrist, and they had a hospital in Goshen, New York. He was very down to earth, very calm and quiet. And so we'd get together and have coffee. And he was a good friend with this. In fact, I think he lived with this Dr. Campion.
Okay.
And Dr. Campion said one day, whenever you're out walking, carry a paper in your left hand so that keeps your right hand free for saluting. So he said, they'll think you're on business. If you got that paper, then they'll know that you're not goofing. So I've never forgotten that. I love that. So that's sorry to get off.
That's great.
Sorry
That's
to get
great.
off the thing,
Those are neat things.
Yeah, he was great.
Those are neat things. And anyway, we went across here, and you landed at
Le Havre.
Le Havre, France.
Le Havre, right.
Okay.
Very bombed out. I think I mentioned in my notes the buildings, the face of the fronts of the buildings were there, but they were just shells.
Everything was gone.
Gone by our bombers, of course.
To get the Germans out of that area, because they were so close to England at that time.
Right.
Yeah. And where were you sent to a special hospital there,
We
or?
were sent to, we call it Neufchâtel, I don't know.
Okay.
It was like a chateau, and it
Oh.
was beautiful, it looked like your picture, you know, but I think it,
Mhm.
did I say, it'd been a military school, and the
Mhm.
Germans had used it. It was a huge place with a big lawn right out in the country. And then
Okay.
it had, rooms, like, there were 100 in our dormitory, 100
Oh.
cots around the side. And I think I wrote home, said to my father, it was just, I was in the corner, and I said, it was just like watching the Fords go by, because it was just intriguing to watch all these people, you know.
Okay.
But it was fun, but it was nice, just thrilling to be out. France was pretty, and we raved about France, because they're so colorful. They had, you know, they wear ribbons in their caps, and they weren't drab. English are a little drab, but they had no choice. They didn't have any thing. So this was great, and it was nice sun shining out in the air. And then I said we were hungry, though, because we had, I don't know who cooked for it, probably some army men said, you go and cook. And they didn't want to cook, and they didn't like it. The food wasn't good. I always talk about food, but we were so hungry. The dinner at night would be at 5 o'clock, and I said by 9 o'clock we were starved because there wasn't anything. And one time this Air Corps, we were invited to an Air Corps party.
Mhm.
Is that okay? And they came with jeeps for it, and they had taken an Air Corps. Of course, they could fly, take things wherever they went. So they took hops to Belgium to make beer. Is that?
Yeah, could be, yeah.
So we came, and then they had an outdoor dance floor and marvelous food. All I do is talk about food. And this beer, it was fun to do. We were so lucky because they were so good to us, you know.
Hmm? Now, you were treating, what kind of people
But we
there?
didn't have any
No
patients there.
patients at that
I think they
point.
were getting us ready to go to, we weren't there very long.
Oh,
a week,
I see.
Maybe a
Okay.
week or so. And then we went to Mourmelon, which is a staging area, Mourmelon, France, that had a
Okay.
hospital. But the
That's-
armies would come in and out of there, or the troops would come in and out, or the nurses would come in and out. And so
Okay.
we went to Mourmelon.
That's
and
down
it-
in southern France.
No,
Right?
that's not
close
far.
to-
Yes,
it was
not
close to
far.
here? Oh,
Right.
not far
Not
from
far
here.
from-
Okay,
no.
still in northern France.
Yeah,
then.
where did,
Yeah.
I forgot, I had miles, but I
No,
forgot.
well, sure,
But-
that's a long
so-
time ago.
We had.
Actually,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah, and we did work there, they had hospitals and we worked there, and then we lived, and we had nice quarters, lived in nice quarters, and trying to find the picture, and that's where I met my brother.
Oh,
Here we
okay.
are, well, I think,
Here's a picture of your brother.
oh yeah, there, yeah, and then this is where outside our place in Mourmelon. It was a
Okay.
nice house, and.
Okay, this is you girls, there at where you were staying there, okay?
In Mourmelon.
Uh-huh. And you mentioned before, early on, that your brother was gone into France.
Yes.
He's the one that lost the finger?
Yes.
Is this the same guy?
This is Rip.
Okay,
Dick.
that was it, all right.
Yeah,
So he's been all this time serving over there.
yeah.
Now he's in France, excuse me. And you apparently were corresponding somehow.
Yes, and trying to call, and.
Yeah.
And just, it kept getting closer and closer.
Uh-huh.
And I think I called somewhere, he was in an ordnance company. So I think
Okay.
I called, 201st Ordnance, I think I called somewhere. And then they said, oh, they just moved out of here, you know.
All right.
So then you have to wait till the next letter from him to find out.
Mhm.
Well, then had worked one day in the hospital, I was taking a nap, and the girls, somebody came and said, your brother's at the front door. So I was so excited. It was the most thrilling experience to see
There's
him.
a picture of you with
Yeah,
your brother.
Yeah, he looked so cute, and he and his friend Greek had a weapons carrier, had use of this weapons carrier, so we just had a ball, and the nurses were wonderful to him, they just,
So you got a lot of rides around.
indeed we did. They had a lot of hash marks, you know, and then I remember that night at the officers, we went for lunch, girls would feed them on their wards and give them breakfast, everybody was just, and the girls all pooled their liquor rations so that the boys would have plenty.
Okay.
And the girls were wonderful to him. And then I think I said in there one time, we were invited to the nurses at Mourmelon were invited to a party somewhere. If you're invited, you go.
Okay.
It says Air Corps, and I said to my assistant head nurse, I said, well, I won't be able to go now because my brother's here. And she said, why not? You can take him right with you. So I said, and they were wonderful to these boys, because they had all these service marks they'd been in. And I said, I looked over one time, here was a general patting my brother on the back, and I thought, oh, they're fine, they got along fine. So we went to Reims that time we were there, went through a champagne factory, We did
Okay.
have fun. Oh, we did. It was wonderful to see him. We had a picnic, that's where the picture is, and it was a thrill.
Now, after you had time with your brother, this was, you talked about Nancy, France, in southern France.
Yes.
And you apparently were there quite a while. Did you get a pass to Paris one time?
Yes,
You
I
mentioned
forgot to
about
tell you,
that?
yes, I did get a pass, I got a 3-day pass to Paris, and that was the time of the VJ Day, August 15th.
BJ Day.
And VJ, Victory and, was it VJ? Well, anyway.
Okay, uh-huh.
And then I also had a classmate from St. Mary's, Kay Early, a dear friend of mine to this day, and we'd been corresponding. He always did. If they were thinking you could get together in England wasn't that big, you know. And she worked on the. She went to Percy Jones, and then she went over to Europe. And she was assigned to the railroad, the train nurse they called it. So we talked, you know, and just never quite made it together. You always tried. So that night I was in Paris, and I met this Captain Seward was there, the doctor, that psychiatrist, and he'd been in France. I think he studied in France, so he knew Paris and all. So we contacted each other and met. We were going down to dinner. Is that okay? We were going to dinner and walking out into the mess hall. I just forgot what they call it. We were walking down Main Street of Paris. My God, looked over and here was Kay.
Oh,
I
my God.
couldn't believe it. We just went into ecstasy. You know, we were so thrilled. So that was a fun week. Paris I liked very much.
So now actually the war is done. It's over.
The
It's
Europe-
signed,
European
and now they
war.
don't need you much anymore.
Well,
right?
Japan. You know, they were.
Yeah, you're going into Japan.
Yeah, it was
That
rumored. It was strongly rumored that we would go to Japan because they were going to invade
Okay.
Japan, and it was rumored that we would go. They would send us to Marseille and ship
Mhm.
us through the Panama Canal,
Okay.
not let us go home at all, because they probably knew they deserted. You know, so go through the Panama Canal and then up and invade Japan.
Okay.
So that was a dreadful thing to live under for a while.
Think about it.
And that was before VJ. Then when VJ, well, no, VJ Day. Then they dropped the atomic bomb.
Yes.
And that was before
Yeah,
VJ.
yeah.
So that was a lifesaver, and it's a blessing that we didn't invade Japan.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then they changed your and sent you toward home instead of
Yes,
out to
yeah,
Japan.
Yes, thank God.
All right. Now you boarded a ship out of where? Do you remember? Port or anything? Was it out of? Was this off of France?
Yes,
Yeah, out of
'cause we
France.
went
Westport,
back,
maybe.
we went back to Mourmelon again. You know,
Yeah.
to get ready to go
Mhm.
home.
Okay.
And while I was there, we could have had a trip to Lourdes, a visit. But if your name came up while you were in Lourdes, you'd lose your
Oh.
place on the ship. You know?
Oh,
So
you
no
didn't wanna
way
do
would I
that.
leave. I remember
Okay.
having my first flu shot in Mourmelon,
Did you?
and then I can't remember where we left from, Ivan.
Maybe Westport, possibly.
You think maybe
You
that
had
could be.
mentioned that you had a nice trip home
Yeah,
from
we did,
Westport.
the
so-
West Point, it was on a
Westport,
Navy
yeah.
ship
And where did you land then?
in Boston.
In Boston
Oh, yeah,
Harbor.
that was thrilling, yeah.
Was that thrilling?
Oh, it was a thrilling day, honestly. It was a Monday morning, and it was about
Mhm.
11 o'clock,
Mhm.
and we landed. And I said we went into this theater, and we all surely, and then they had a band there, and the band was
Mm.
blaring out American. I just get real emotional. And
Yeah.
it was wonderful. And they welcomed you home, and it was thrilling. And then we had a wonderful, I always talk about food, but they had a wonderful steak dinner. You could call home. They couldn't have been nicer to us. It was wonderful. So
Mhm.
it was thrilling.
And from Boston, you got did you go by train? Or?
Yes, on my
And
train.
where did you go
I
then?
think we went to Fort Dix,
New Jersey?
New Jersey,
Mhm.
getting ready to go home.
And that's where you got your discharge
Yes.
papers,
Mhm.
out of Fort Dix,
Yeah.
okay?
Mhm.
Then they put you on a train, I suppose?
Yeah, right, again.
Got a ticket again?
You got a ticket?
All right.
And
On to
orders,
Grand
always
Rapids.
had orders, yeah.
All right.
And went to Detroit, and then
I imagine you then to Grand Rapids,
into
huh?
Grand Rapids on a Sunday night. I remember riding.
On a Sunday night?
Yeah, thrilling, just thrilling.
Now you
Yeah.
spent in December, that was in December
December,
of 1945.
yes.
Did you get home in time for Christmas?
Oh,
then?
yes, I
Yeah.
can't think of the dates, but
Yeah.
anyway, it was before
But you-
Christmas.
before
And my
Christmas.
brothers were there. My older brother, who was a priest, decided to go in the army too about
Yeah.
the time I did, because I went up to visit him in Charleroi, and he said, I'm going to be enlisting too. So he went into and he went into Harvard, the chaplain school at Harvard, because we always
Okay.
kidded him about going to Harvard.
Okay.
And then he went to the South Pacific, and he had a rough time with
Oh, yeah.
malaria and with
But
The South Pacific was a rough area, I
yes,
think,
he
really.
survived all that and come
Yeah,
back.
he did, and he
was
had,
home though before you then.
Yes, he was. He was
Mhm.
there at the training. He had malaria, so he was very jaundiced. I remember seeing him, very
Mhm.
thin. And then my other brother was home too, the one from Africa. Dick was there.
Okay, so the
it
whole
was
reunion of
wonderful.
all
It was
three
wonderful.
kids.
It was wonderful.
I
yeah.
bet your dad was happy to
Oh,
see
I
all
think,
three
I bet
of
he
you.
would. Yeah, I think he would.
Yeah.
So we were too. So.
But your dad still remembered that you ought to go to work, right? Now you're free and
Yes.
fancy free here.
Yes.
What did he?
Well, he didn't like it too. Oh, I had it. You know, when you were discharged from the army, you had all your vacation pay. You know, and then you had a little bit of a pension. From what I don't know, where I got the pension from. I don't know. You had an income from per month. So I just enjoyed myself for a few months, and he kept saying, "Are you planning to go to work? Are you planning to go to work?" 'Cause he worked. So finally, my money kind of ran out. So I did go to St. Mary's and worked in the obstetrics department. And I did tell Ivan that I'd walk on those marble floors at St. Mary's. My feet got so sore. I'd have a heck of a time again. We bust down and bust home, and then I'd soak my feet at night in Epsom salts, and get up the next morning and go to work. Finally, that worked. Thank God. So I worked there until about a year and a half. And then Dr. Shepard from Lowell asked me to come and work for him.
He asked you
Yes,
that.
yes.
He came in there occasionally. Is that
Oh,
how you
yes,
got to
yes,
meet
he
him?
had,
All right.
He had baby there, and then Mrs. McDonald, his partner's wife, had a
Yes.
baby there, and so probably that's how. And then he would come in there occasionally. I remember, I hate to say this, but I remember him coming in one time. I was at the desk, and there was some lady there
Mhm.
from Lowell who had a baby, did not want to keep the baby.
Mhm.
I don't know what I don't know anything about her.
Yeah.
So he went in to tell her, and she wanted to see the baby. He went in to tell her, no way could she see that baby. That
Oh, okay.
she didn't want it, and she wasn't going to. So
Well,
I always
see-
remember this distinguished gentleman. And I thought, well, he made a decision, he stood by it. So.
Mhm. It was Dr. McKay, very
No,
smart.
Dr.
Or Dr.
Shepard.
Dr. Shepard. I know Shepard.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was Dr. Shepard.
I got my
Yeah.
generations of doctors
Well,
mixed
yeah,
up here.
'cause you know, that's right.
You done so good all through the war, and here I mess up
Oh, no.
that
no,
easily.
no.
Anyways, so then you came to Lowell and worked for
Lowell,
Dr.
worked for
Shepard
Dr.
here in his
Shepard.
office,
I liked
1947,
Right.
right? And you need some transportation
Right.
evidently. Was that a good thing?
'Cause I said to Doctor, I wondered how I was going to get back and forth. My father never drove much, or he drove. His car was a joy, a gold, like gold to him.
Yeah.
So you didn't touch that car, and the only time you used it was on Sunday. People understand that. So no way was I going to be able to use this car. I said, Dr. Shepard, I've got to figure out a way to get back and forth. He said, well, I think we can figure that out. So
Okay.
he was good friends with Simon McKay, Orlo's uncle. He had the Buick Chevrolet garage. So we
Okay.
went down there, and the cars I think were hard to get. I don't
Uh-huh.
know. So we bought a car, and I used my savings. My father was chagrined. I used my bonds, cashed those in, and bought that car. But it was the dearest car. I loved that car. And I said, then when Orlo came home one day, he said, we're going to sell that car. I was heartbroken.
And that was Orlo Watkins.
Then
It was the salesman, right?
That's right. I meant to tell you that Orlo was the salesman.
Yeah,
Is
that's
the
okay,
camera,
yeah,
is the
yeah,
camera.
yeah.
And so he sold me the Chevrolet, and so we
Uh-huh.
started dating, and then we were married a year later.
You were
So-
married a year
Yeah.
later in 1948.
Right.
And you built a house?
Well, we rented.
Rented first?
Mary Wingard's house. You know,
Okay.
and, she and her sister Lydia had this house they bought because they are out on a farm on Old 16, right there, the Wingard farm. maybe?
Yes.
And then the mother was not well, so they stayed home to take care of their mother, but was with the understanding that if anything happened to the mother, the oldest son would inherit the farm. That's not unusual. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So they knew that. So they thought we've got to be wise. So they bought a home. It was a cute house on North Hudson, 903 North Hudson, darling house to move into.
Huh.
So we rented that then.
And then we eventually built a house.
Then we rented from West Ross.
Oh,
We-
too,
We
okay.
bought their older house.
Uh-huh.
And, they built a new house that you said you worked with Rick
Yeah.
Graham, didn't you?
And then you built one on
We built-
Hamady
We
Street.
built right across the kitty corner from.
Okay.
So. We did. I'm trying to think of.
There.